Overpaying for anything sucks, especially socks, so why pay $45 for a single pair of grip socks when you can spend less than half? Pure Grip Socks Pro feature our best materials for optimal fit, moisture wicking, and performance at a fair price, just $16.99 a pair at puregripsocks.com.
Somebody just got their first ever signature colorway. That man being Christian Pulisic in the form of the brand new Puma Ultra Ultimate, of course in the red, white, and blue of the United States of America, just in time for the 2022 World Cup, where realistically, aside from the colorway, the only difference you're going to find between this pair and a regular Ultra Ultimate is the $20 premium, these running you $220 rather than $200. But don't worry, you can get them for less by way of some exclusive SR4U coupon codes by checking out the first link down below. Now obviously red, white, and blue is the theme. You can even see they incorporated a star as well as the stripes from the American flag here on the lateral side, with the other nod to Christian Pulisic being the new CP logo that's very subtly placed on the medial side of the forefoot, although it makes it quite noticeable when they made this graphic kind of around it. Overall, I actually like the graphics that they've put on the football boot. My main gripe is the color they've used, mainly the red, which hopefully this comes through in the video, is almost pink rather than red. I've seen pictures where the red looks really red, but you can see side by side with the Puma box, which is a true red, it definitely is more on the pinky orange side of things. Pinkish red aside, I do think the boots look good overall, although I can definitely see some people arguing that the graphics might look a little bit childish, and I tend to agree with that as well. It does very much look like a design that was intended for kids to really be into, and even here on the medial side, you have this graphic that kind of reminds me of Sonic the Hedgehog spinning up in a ball, which is the ultimate form of speed. Nonetheless, for a first signature colorway, especially themed off of the US men's national team colors going into the World Cup, I actually think they're pretty cool. As for the fit, feel, and performance of the Puma Ultra Ultimate, I like the boots overall. However, I can't say that I like them as much as past Ultra models. The upper is now made from a material called Ultra Weave and reinforced by another material called Power Print. So it's a textile-based synthetic material with kind of like a 3D textured polyurethane on the top layer. It's a little bit difficult to see the texturing, especially on the white parts of the upper, but you can see there are some raised bits that I guess you could kind of compare to the Phantom GT2 from Nike, but definitely a little bit less significant. And in terms of the additional grip that it provides on the ball, I would say for the most part, the upper has been left relatively slick. There's some additional grip, but I definitely don't think that they're sticky on the ball. Nonetheless, from a feel perspective, I think the upper is quite good. It feels very soft, it's quite sock-like, although when you have the boots on your feet, the boots do end up feeling a little bit more plasticky than I would expect from a material that is textile based. So it is something to be aware of. You do have the same material across the entire upper with this one-piece construction, and then some elasticated knit material across the top of the foot with what is a mostly central lacing system, although it has been pushed slightly to the lateral side. No issues with that. I actually quite like that design element. A low cut construction towards the rear, an internal plastic heel counter. What they're trying to push as a feature in the form of this power tape on the back in the form of this Y is literally just that, some tape on the heel over top of an internal plastic heel counter that is covering up some stitching. I don't think this does absolutely anything whatsoever. It looks cool, but I definitely don't think it's a performance feature. And then internally, you're gonna find a very minimal amount of padding lined in this soft microfiber material. The liner material is great. The amount of padding I think is insufficient, and really one of my main gripes with the Ultra Ultimate, and that I just don't think they're quite as comfortable through the heel as previous Puma Ultras were. In general, I don't find these as comfortable as past generations of Ultras, and that for me was one of the main selling features of this particular line. The insole, however, is great, at least the liner. It features their nano grip material, which you can't really see, but it has this soft kind of silicone type texture to it that's a little bit grippy against your sock to prevent your feet from sliding around inside of the football boot. And then the insole itself is made from a single layer of white foam with a perforated foam insert, basically running the entirety of the forefoot and toe box area. It's super lightweight, but for me, the liner is what's special about this particular component. As a base, you'll find the new dual density speed plate, sole plate, and stud pattern, which in comparison to the previous generation does add some thickness and a little bit of weight, which you guys will see later in the video. But overall, I would say compared to the Adidas and Nike alternatives that are going to be the most popular speed boot options out there, this has a little bit more of a soft, flexible feel to it. Not to the point where it's flimsy by any means, but it's certainly not to the level of what you're going to find from the two main competitors of the Ultra Ultimate. As far as the stud pattern is concerned, this is their FGAG layout, which I really disagree with calling this an artificial grass stud pattern. I don't think this is good for use on AG surfaces at all. The studs are too long and the shape of the studs just make for way too much cling. I would say these are borderline unsafe for use on artificial grass, but use them on that surface at your own risk. Obviously Puma is saying it's okay. Nonetheless, for use on natural grass, the studs are super aggressive. They dig in really nicely. The studs themselves have a little bit more of a rounded shape than what we previously had on the last several generations of Ultra, so it's perhaps a little bit easier to twist and pivot, but in general, it's a top performing stud pattern that on natural grass, most people will not have any complaints about. Which brings us to the weight, where unsurprisingly the Ultra Ultimate is super light. However, they're nowhere near as light as they used to be, which is a bit disappointing. In a size 9.5 US, the Ultra Ultimate weighs in at 6.6 ounces, the equivalent of 188 grams, which by top-end speed boot standards is still super lightweight. However, there are lighter options out there from other brands now, and compared to the outgoing Ultra 1.4, it gains almost a full ounce, which is super noticeable on feet, where the Ultra Ultimate goes from being a football boot that kind of felt weightless in the 1.4 to a speed boot that now feels about the same weight as all of its competition. And for the extra weight that it has, I don't think the boots as a whole have gained in any one area, which, like I said, is a little bit disappointing. On feet, I quite like the way they look. They're better looking on feet than in hand, in my opinion, but feel free to leave your own opinions on that down below in the comment section. But in terms of the fit, feel, and overall comfort of the Ultra Ultimate, that to me is the most disappointing aspect of this football boot. I thought what was so cool about previous generations of Ultra is how ridiculously light they were, not just in general, but compared to their competition, but also managing to be one of the more comfortable speed boots on the market. The Ultra Ultimate is still light, not quite as light as you just saw, but I think they're a little bit lacking in terms of comfort, particularly through the heel. I just feel like there is a lack of padding, and my heel is sitting directly against the internal plastic heel counter, which you get used to after a little bit of wear time. It's not really a big deal, but there is more of a break-in time with these football boots than what you're gonna find from most top-end models out there, and that in itself is a little bit disappointing. And for me, I also find the heel to be a little bit on the shallow side, which is something that I'm never really a big fan of. From a comfort perspective, particularly through the heel, I just feel like these aren't up to the same standard as most of their competition. As far as the feel of the upper is concerned, I'm not sure why, because it feels great in hand. It does end up feeling stiffer and more plasticky on feet. Again, not to the point where it's uncomfortable, but I just think there are better feeling super thin uppers currently on the market. From a shape perspective, I think they did actually a really good job. I like the lacing system. It's a little bit lower volume than previous generations of Ultra, and in general, I think it wraps your foot really, really nicely. There's a decent amount of width pretty much all the way through, so as long as you don't have excessively wide feet, these are going to fit most people. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. So if you're looking to get a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, the Ultra Ultimate is ultimately a solid pair of football boots. I think the vast majority of people that end up with a pair are going to really enjoy them. With that said, having tried other speed boot alternatives that are out there right now, I would not pick the Ultra Ultimate over the Ultra 1.4 that it replaces. I think the Mercurial Vapor 15 Elite is a better overall football boot, even though they are $50 more expensive. And if you want something that's closer to this price range, this colorway retails for $220. The New Balance Furon V7 Pro retails for $225, and in my opinion, offers many of the same elements, utilizes very similar materials, but overall fits better, is more comfortable, and I think is just a better performing pair of football boots. I like them, but there's a bunch of other speed boots that I personally like more.